Thank you all for coming. Again, I'm Stephanie Pepper, and this is part 2 of the Back to the Basics series. So today we're going to be going over how to start a project, some best practices when starting projects in eManage, and project contacts, and best practices with those. So I am going to go ahead and get started. And guys, if you haven't already figured out, we are recording all of these and they are being posted to our YouTube channel. So please go check it out. You can find our YouTube channel through the help menu inside of eManage One. All right, let's get started. So like we went over last session, starting a company record. It sounds like everybody pretty much got that down, but once the company record is started, it'll obviously already be in your search down here in the very bottom left, the search all tool. Okay, this is the search all. So you just start typing your company name. Okay, this should always be the first thing that you do when starting a project. At least go look for it once. If you don't see it in there, then you would revert back to that prospecting tool like we went over in the first session. And that's just going to prevent you from creating those duplicates. So rule of thumb number 1, when starting a project in eManage, you should always be starting from the install location. So where you're actually doing the work. Okay, that can be kind of different from other systems out there. Sometimes you start from the build to address, and that can be a bit of a change, but it's going to save you a ton of trouble later on down the road if you just always start your project from where you're doing the work. Okay, if you're not sure where you're doing the work, I get that question quite a bit. You don't have an address just yet. You do have to start it from somewhere, and then you can change it later on. Okay, I like to maybe just put TBD in the address, just put your the zip code closest to where you think it's going to be, or use your zip code, and then you can always override that information in the company record. When you override the company record, that's going to override all the history and future, documentation, anything connected to that company record. Okay. So let's say we are going to be doing the work at 5909 Camp Bowie. If you don't already have some saved grid layouts, I'm seeing all the information that I really truly need to see, what's important to me up front. All of these are customizable, and we will have a session on that in the Back to the Basics series on how to manipulate these columns and headers and the way that these appear when you search for things. But if you know how to do that, definitely the one that I'm looking at most is this address here, making sure I'm starting it from the install location. Company type can also be another little indicator of choosing the right location, and then location name too. If you have locations that have multiple, kind of like this, location name is a good way to identify those, but mostly I'm looking at that address. From here, if it's already in here, a lot of people will double click on it, open it up, then go actions. From here, you can always right click. Get really comfortable with that right click menu. That's always going to take you straight to those 3 really important menu items there: modules, history, actions. Okay. Right now, what we're going to do is go actions, start a new project. And this is just the basics. So just starting a project. We're not getting into quick quotes or anything like that here. So once you start the project from that record, it's going to pull in. If you set up the company record correctly and set up a default salesperson, it should automatically be pulling that in for you. If you're having to do that on every single project creation for this record, you're going to be wasting a bit of time. So make sure you go back and fix the root of the problem. Go in and assign that primary salesperson with the credit of 100%, or whatever the assigned credit is. If you had multiple salespeople, that would show up here. Quick way to get back into this company record pretty quickly. Anytime you see this little guy here in any of the labels, any of the company record labels, that little building will open up the company record, and then you can make changes there pretty quickly. You may not make that change right away, like if I had already started that project, but it is going to be making those changes. As you can see, I had already set up the default build to last time that we had this session. So you're going to see when we get to the quoting portion of this series, it's automatically going to pull in the build to for me. If you already don't know, the one underneath that, the 2 pieces of paper, that's a copy. You can copy that and literally anywhere inside of eManage or outside of eManage, you can just paste that. So that's really quick and handy for when you're communicating with subcontractor groups or things like that. Okay, so let's just talk about best practices with the project name. If you've been using the software for quite some time, this might be an area that's kind of gotten, everybody's kind of just doing what they want to do. I say tighten it back up, make sure everybody's kind of doing things the same way. It makes it easier for reporting and searching for projects later on down the road and things like that. So I'm going to give you my best practices, what I've been implementing with all of our new clients, and it's been going pretty well, but you can tweak it from there. But what I typically like to say is always start your project name with the company name, okay? And if there were a location, a specific location, maybe for this one I would do FTW or Fort Worth, okay? Then from there, I've seen some companies even go as far as doing a dash and then the salesperson's initials in the project name. That makes it really easy when you're looking at reporting or you're going back and trying to search for something. Just right by looking at the project name, you can see exactly who owns it, where that location is, and then in a minute you're going to see a little bit about the project. I've seen some people use that, and some people say, yeah, it's really not very beneficial for me, but you guys can make those decisions. At the very least, start it with your company name, okay, the install location. Then I usually see like a backslash, something like that, and then the project name, okay? Don't just, you start to name every project name chair or table, new chair. That's going to get kind of overwhelming. You're going to have a lot of projects with that name. So try to be, more specific than that, but don't go crazy. It doesn't need to be outrageous, but, maybe, new chair or new, you'd be specific what kind of chair or who the manufacturer is. But maybe I would go for and then the person's name. Okay, if it's for a specific person, if it's big project, relocation, things like that, it's going to be a little bit different. But if you have some type of contact name, I always like to add that into the project name as well. Again, just for searching purposes, reporting purposes, it makes it a lot easier. But if you have, at least, the basics here, you're getting a bunch more information than just chair or table. Okay. Your division is probably always going to default if you only have one division. Okay. If you have multiple divisions in your company, obviously you have to drop that down and choose your right division. Otherwise, we'll just default. And as you guys get, super comfortable, if you're like me, I really like to use my keys. I don't like to use my mouse that much unless I have to. All of these fields you can just tab through and you can just start typing the first part of so if I just hit F, go straight to furniture project. Okay, and then I just tab and go to the next one, tab, go to the next one. Okay. You'll start, if you haven't already gotten familiar with what's in these drop downs, you will. Project type, you guys most of you are going to have these basic project types. Some of you might have expanded since we've implemented, but you can have the basics, furniture project, anything that has the cell of furniture on it, okay? Labor only labor, okay? You're not actually putting any cell of furniture on your bill of materials. Obviously, service warranty, intermarket project, if you do any intermarkets, bid, request for proposal. Project types are all, really good for reporting, but even more than that, we'll do a session on action items, but action items are dictated by project type. So you can have a different set of action items per project type. So it really makes you think outside the box. Yes, my workflow is pretty much the same A to Z for everything that has to go through the system, but there might be a few exceptions. For service warranty, I have to get a few other people involved. I have to do a different action item for service warranty. Bid, request for proposal, maybe there's some different people involved there and different steps that have to take place. Action items are all dictated by your project type. But yeah, for reporting, I want to be able to run reports on how many bid / request for proposals project types did we actually enter the system this year, and how many did we cancel, and how many did we actually process through as an order. So things like that. Status, you should always, if you don't have something like new opportunity, you might say like new project start or new project, something like that. You should always only be choosing that very first one. If these are not in order of kind of how you do business, you can prioritize these in your drop-down setup in the administrator. We can talk about that when we get into action items, but you should always just be choosing that top one, new project start or new opportunity, because action items change the project status. So based off of where it's at in the workflow, your status should automatically update based off of what action items are being completed. Okay, so if you just choose new opportunity and let it do its thing, it's just one less thing that you have to think about. And again, if you just tab down, I just always hit F and then in and choose new opportunity, tab, next one. Okay. Probability, be as, realistic as you possibly can here. Again, reporting purposes, as a management team, I might, in my current opportunities from today, I might filter everything out 50 and below just to give us a better idea of what we're actually projecting for the year, for the upcoming months. Okay, so be specific and be as accurate as you possibly can here, how you're feeling about it. We always, I don't know if anybody has 100 in their system, but we implement all of our new clients with about this 90, 75, 50, 25. But you guys can add different probabilities in here. We try to keep it as simple as possible. There's no 100 because we say nothing's really guaranteed, especially at this point in the process. You're just creating a project. So 50 here. Project manager, you'll see a little asterisk here if you actually have something in this drop down in your system, which you totally should. If you guys don't have project managers, we like to suggest kind of using this for a different drop down. I see a lot of companies don't have project managers or project coordinators, and maybe the designers kind of double up in that role. Put all your designers in this drop down. Okay. Or if you don't want to do that and you want to use it for something else, lead installer or something like that, you can use it for whatever you want. Now you can't change this label here. It's always going to say project manager, but you can change the label in different reports. And we'll get into that when we get to grid layouts. If you do put something in this drop down, I highly suggest you have a TBD, to be determined, and an NA, not applicable. That way, if someone's creating a project and it's they know that they're not going to need a project manager or designer on it, they may just choose NA. If they don't know who it's going to be, might choose TBD, and then the designers can tackle it from there. If you don't have anything in this, it's not a required field, and you just move on to the next one. Decision date can be used for when the customer is actually going to decide if they're going to go through with this or not. I've seen clients use this in other ways though. And again, system is completely customizable to what makes sense to you guys. Okay, so if you want to use this for approximate order date, approximate install date, just whatever it is that you're going to use this field for, make it known. Make sure everyone understands what this field is for. Otherwise, everyone's just going to be punching in whatever they think this means to them. Approximate value should never leave this one blank, okay? Always put a value in there. For reporting purposes, management's looking at your current opportunities and that value, that big number at the bottom, total projections, that if you got a bunch in there as 0, that report is pretty much useless. Not totally useless, but and then it will update automatically to whatever your bill of materials are once you have a quote in place. So it will update automatically as long as you have that set up in the administrator, which we typically set up for you. Scope of work here should really, and this is one that I have a lot of old clients that are using it in a different way. The system's really evolved since the beginning. So what I typically like to suggest for scope of work is just a general idea of what this project entails. Okay, my first question is always like, where do I put my install notes? We'll get to that, okay? But I like this area for just a general scope of work because it's not going to be cluttered with a bunch of information like install notes. You don't want your installers to be focusing on, you only want them to be focusing on what they need to focus on. If it's got notes in there for today and notes in there for tomorrow or next week, they may not read the most important note and just skip through it. So what I like to say is just, something simple. When I log into this project, I want to see a little bit of what this project entails. Okay. One, global task share for Bob Jones. Just general idea of what the project entails. And we'll get to install notes and how this all transfers over. I like to use this as just a general scope of work. A couple little things down here. Requires installation. Okay, if that's checked, that means that in your admin, it has this project type as automatically default to require installation. So if you're constantly unclicking that based off of your project type, you can tell it to default to not check. Don't know very many that would do that, but you want to keep an eye on it. If you forget to uncheck it here, let's say you're just going to throw this chair in the back of your car and deliver it yourself. I would uncheck it. What this does is it feeds directly into the, I'm sorry, give me just 1 second. I'm sorry about that, guys. So you'll just want to uncheck requires installation if you know that you're going to throw it into the back of your car and just deliver it yourself. This feeds into the install calendar, and your scheduler is just going to always see this on their booked orders needing to be scheduled until someone goes in and cleans it up. Not that big of a deal. They can just uncheck it in their calendar, but you kind of want to keep an eye on it. Tax exempt, that's if the record was marked as tax exempt, that'd be my red flag there. If this company is tax exempt, and it's not clicked, I would want to open this back up and fix the root of the problem. But you can check it here as well. Direct bill, also if the client was set up as direct bill, it'll automatically be checked. But if you know that this one is going to be a direct bill, you check that off, finish out the steps for the direct bill process. You have a couple of other things here. So after we hit, you do have, before I get to save, you do have a scope builder here as well. I've seen some people use this as kind of like a template of what information they'd like to collect in the scope of work. You can click Scope Builder and save text to just reuse on every single one. So if this was something I wanted to reuse, you could just hit Save Text to Grid for reuse. Then every time someone goes to enter something into here, they could hit Scope Builder, check it off down here at the bottoms and say Use Checked Items and Close. And it just pops all that text right into here, and then they can finish filling out what they need to fill out. I've seen some people use it here. I use it in more often in other places than in this one, but just so you know it's there. As you can see, I just went down this left side. That's all the required fields. Okay, these are not required, but they are optional. Usually, I'm not using the touches until a little bit later, but you can do touch types and touch dates. These do plug into your calendar, the top of your events calendar. So if I needed to remind myself to, follow up or schedule a call or something like that, I could put that in there, put a date in, and it puts it on my calendar. Quote date will automatically fill in once the system recognizes that you have a quote in place. Don't worry too much about registered right now. We'll get into that in another webinar. I don't know very many people that are using this, but if you don't see anything in this drop down, it's because the company record is not checked off as the furniture dealer, or the architect is architect. So that's a setting inside of the company record to get things to populate in these drop downs. This right here, never going to save for future uses. That's why it's important to actually have those contacts entered into the system. We'll go over that in just a second. So once I hit save, you guys can see that this whole bar changes up a bit. Okay, add quick contact was grayed out, so there's nothing I could actually do. That's what I would say. It's not the best reminder, but I say that's like my reminder to add a contact to this project. I would never be moving forward from this screen without adding a contact. I mean, someone reached out to you on this. Okay, if you don't have all the information you need to add a contact in, you can add what you do have and then go back and edit it at a later time, and it'll update it automatically on this project and that contact record. At the very least, you can even add yourself as a contact. If you're in the system against your own company, you would want to go into your own company record. So for me, I would go into Marketplace, right click, Actions, add a quick contact, and add myself. then I can add myself as a contact to any future projects. So we'll go over that in just a minute, because what that means is you don't have to necessarily be adding contacts from this company. You can add additional contacts connected to other company records. So that's my red flag, add a contact. This add quick contact window that pops up. And so going back to the first session when I was telling you guys you should be using that new company button instead of new company and contact, you know, you didn't do it at that point, but once you start creating the project, I feel like this is kind of killing two birds with one stone. Like you didn't add it at that point, but you set up the company record completely and fully. And then now I'm starting the project. It's adding it in one window or the other window doesn't really matter to me. The main goal is that I want you to be setting up your company records thoroughly, you know, the primary sales rep and the default bill to, if that is applicable. But this is, you know, I'm adding it in here, and then it's going to add to this project and for all future uses. So I might as well just do it here. So you can see down here, there's nothing. If I did have someone in the system, so I'm just going to search my name. Oh, I'm not in here. My test database, don't judge me. So if I just type, this add a quick contact adds as a search, all contacts. It acts as an add or an add existing. So add new, add existing, or add from a whole different company record. So you can see here, Bob Jones, I just typed the last name in this field here, salutation first last, and hit tab on my keyboard, and this popped up down here. So it's searching for all the last names with Jones in it. So from here, I could actually grab it and just drag and drop. Okay. So we're just going to do a, so if I was looking for my name and I wanted to add my email and my phone number and all of that to the work order, I can add myself. You know, you can add as many contacts as you need to the project information. But this does act as your work order screen. So pretty much everything that's populating in here is going to show up on your work order screen. So this install address, your project name, project type, all the contacts. So if you want your installer to have your information, that's the best way to do it there. Add yourself to the project. Otherwise, you know, so when I start typing in here, Tess Jones, that's first name, last name, and I don't see them down here, then I would continue to add my other information here. Okay. If it's down here, you would just grab it and drag and drop. It doesn't really matter who they're connected to, as long as that information is across the board the same. So if you had someone from a different location and maybe they manage multiple locations and they're showing up down here, just grab them and drag and drop. Otherwise, you can hit save and it's going to add them. This is trying to sync up with my Outlook. I don't want it to do that one, so I'm just going to cancel. It adds them to this project, but it also, for all future uses, so when I start a project for Bank of Texas, Camp Bowie tomorrow, there's that Tess Jones, and I would just grab and drag and drop. So important to get those contacts in here. It makes it so much quicker to email, to locate this contact information, all that good stuff. As you can see, the first contact that I added in here, it automatically added them as the primary. Okay, if I made a boo-boo and this is not supposed to be the primary contact, you can't just uncheck it right here. You would have to add another one, highlight that contact, and then mark as primary contact. So these are your project contact options here. Once we get into the more fun stuff, you know, webinars after this, back to the basics, we'll go over some of this other fun stuff, mail merging and schedule events and things like that. But that's how you add a contact. If you accidentally make a mistake, you need to remove it, highlight, remove. But what that does, that primary, it carries over to your quote. So now when I go to start the quote on the next session, you guys are going to see it's going to automatically put prepared for Tess Jones. Cool name. So if that, you should always be adding who you're preparing the quote for first. That way you're not having to flip them around and whatnot. Okay. Another button you have here that we just added in fairly recently this print button. I'm going to print the project information report. It's been asked for quite some time now and finally got it in there. What I know people are using this for might be like a cover page to a drawing or any backup paperwork that needs to go out with the install team. That way when you drop it with your scheduler, they know exactly what project that's connected to. I've also seen people use this to email out to their subcontractor groups and things like that. But nice little clean report, basically just showing you everything that's on here. Okay. You also have team members activity. A lot of people I know aren't using this. And it's, it's up to you if you need to use it. Just depends on your business setup and your whole workflow. But this team members, that column shows up everywhere. In reports and whatnot, in your action items, in your current opportunities. So if there are other people involved on this project that you want it to show up, I've seen people use this. So if you do have project managers, and you want to assign a designer or a sales support person, if you work in silos or something like that, you can use this specifically for, hey, we're going to use this for designers. Or if you want to show all the team members involved, you can use it for that. But that's kind of nice feature there. They also have some last access by, so anybody who's accessed it, how long they've been in it, when they opened and closed it, things like that, kind of helpful information there. But the really nice one that we just added in, and I'll show this one again once we start getting some acknowledgments and orders on this one, but this order status tab, that's a new feature. I will be going over this again on Friday. But the order status is going to show you all of your acknowledgments, acknowledged ship dates, install dates, PO numbers, all basically if it's been received or not received in the system. So everything that you really need to be looking at in order to, at a bird's eye view, look at the order status, to be able to say, okay, we should be able to schedule this around this date based off of these acknowledged ship dates. Instead of having to go to a few different places in the system, because you do have all of these vendor acknowledgments, received products, but they move, through here as they move through the system. So they might come out of vendor acknowledgments once it's been received. Once it's been scheduled, it's going to come out of received products. So if you want to look at this project as a whole, this is going to be a great area to do that. So that's going to be out in this update. If you haven't gotten the update yet, we've been slowly releasing it. I'll speak to that more on Friday. With that being said, we are, if you haven't already, my admins should have received an email about the webinar for the new feature releases this Friday. We're going to start doing that quarterly with the update to give you guys a rundown of all the different new features, bug fixes, any additions, things that might be important to you in this update. So if you haven't received that email, please let me know if you are interested in attending that webinar. Ravi and I will be hosting that one. Otherwise, if you want to unmute yourself for any questions, or if you feel like chatting them in, feel free. I'm going to open up the room for the next 15 minutes or so on project information.
Stephanie.
Yes.
Scott Weichman.
Hi, Scott.
We'll be chatting next week, but two things. One, I didn't get that invite.
Okay, I'll send it to you.
For Friday. Okay, and then my other question, and this just came up the other day, and I talked to Melanie about it, and I think it's a pretty easy fix. But so we have, in our situation, oftentimes, I don't have the end user destination, so we're putting in the dealer to start the project to get them a quote, especially for dealers that we don't, this might be the first time we're working with them, so they're not anxious to give me their client information just yet. So we start with the bill to, but I'm just dragging and dropping at the end of that
Perfect.
And I'm assuming that's the correct way to do that, correct?
Yes. So,
Okay.
yeah, Scott does a lot of intermarket work. So, as anybody else who does intermarket work, the deal there. But yeah, if you just start it from the bill to, if you can help it, you want to make sure to drag and drop it here before it gets to bill of materials. If you can't make it by then, bill of materials, you got to change it there as well. So just know, yes, I can drag and drop here to correct the install, but my bill of materials might be incorrect if I've already started something there. So drag and drop there as well.
So do I have to so there's also a place where it has all those addresses at the quote stage when
Right.
you're actually getting ready to print a quote. Does that save back to here if I put it in there? Because that's where
No.
I've been dragging it in.
No, you need to change
Okay.
it in both places because what this directly affects, it is feeding into your quote. So like I said, if you don't catch it till after your quote, you have to drag and drop change here because this directly affects your work order. So if this still has your bill to address, your install address on your work order is going to be incorrect. So change it on your quote. So the bill to and just the install location because your bill to will still probably be correct.
Yes.
Drag and drop on your install location on the bill of materials, the quote as well.
Okay.
Both places.
Okay.
Okay.
And then again, it could be a separate question, but I don't think our approximate value defaults back to our BOM.
Let me check. Let me make a note and I'll check your admin settings. And then if there's something going on there, I'll definitely let you guys know.
And it could be a simple setting, but yeah, oftentimes, you're guessing from an installation side until you understand the scope.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I'll check on that and get back to you, Scott.
Thank you.
No problem. All right. Sounds like everybody's pretty comfortable here. Hopefully, you took away something. But the next session I will be sending out, I am going to do it in 2 weeks. So on the 20th of November, I'll send out another invitation there. I'm kind of debating how I'm going to start sending out these invitations. I'm kind of thinking about just sending them out automatically to all of my admins. But I'll let you guys know. I do have one question coming in. Does the contact field in project information under furniture dealer and architect populate anywhere? Good question. It does not. It's really just to be able to come back into this project information and be able to see who those contacts are. And again, if I just type somebody's name in here and phone number, it's not going to save for all future uses. Good question. Just a couple more minutes for any other questions. If you guys don't have any questions, feel free to go ahead and log out. And I appreciate your time and hope you guys are finding this valuable. As we get further along in the process, I'm sure that it'll really start being more valuable. All right. I appreciate you guys. Hope everyone has a good rest of the week, and we will talk to you this Friday, hopefully, if not in a couple weeks. Thanks a bunch. Have a good one.